Greetings to the 2022 United Tribes Unity Conference. As Chairwoman, the State Advisory Council on Indian Education sends appreciation for the opportunity to present. The mission of SACIE is to create a system that engages state policy leaders, public school personnel, parents, tribal leaders, and communities in providing educational experiences and cultural opportunities that promote high expectations and accountability for the academic achievement of American Indian students, thus preparing students for success in a globally competitive environment. The vision of SACIE is that every American Indian student in North Carolina will graduate from academically rigorous and culturally relevant high schools, as well as prepared lifelong learners globally competitive for work and post-secondary education. SACIE has completed much work with a continued major focus on the promotion of the self-paced online professional development module, Culturally Responsive Teaching About American Indians. Anytime a teacher asks about a resource to assist with being culturally responsive, I inform them about this module. What's more, teachers can earn CEUs for completing the module. It is most helpful when district leaders and administrators share this resource with teachers. Each year, SACIE produces a report that highlights educational data of American Indian students and their peers within the state. In this report, SACIE also used important data from the Native Voices pilot. The assembled data provided an opportunity to refine recommendations for the North Carolina Department of Instruction. The report highlights the continued need for educational equity for American Indian students. I am pleased to provide the 2021 report, American Indian Resilience, Advancing Educational Equity for Our Students During a Pandemic. The report highlights state-level findings. It is important to note that the 2019-20 data for EOGs and EOCs are not available due to COVID-19. Therefore, that data is not included in the report. While the Council did want to see if there were any trends if we looked at subgroup data by grade level for EOGs and by gender for EOCs. This data set did not yield any significant findings. In the area of EOG reading across grade levels, there is a gap between American Indian student performance and the state average. In the area of EOG math across grade levels, there is a gap between American Indian student performance and the state average. In both reading and math, that gap is more pronounced between American Indian students and their white peers. In all three EOG tested areas, American Indian female students consistently outperformed their male American Indian peers, most significantly on English 2 EOC assessments. According to the 2019-2020 ACT assessment data, American Indian students had an average score of 15 9/10, which is 2 7/10 points lower than the state average score. The rate of American Indian students taking the SAT in 2019-20 was 3 8/85 percentage points below their participation rate in 2018. From 2018 to 2019, the percentage of students taking AP exams decreased for all students in the state by 1 4/200 percentage points. The number of American Indian students taking AP exams increased by 2 7/800 points. However, American Indian students had the second lowest AP exam participation rates at an 8 9/10%. To offer science insights, American Indian students' rates of proficiency and growth are significantly higher in science than in reading and math across grade levels. Gaps in proficiency rates between American Indian students and the state average and their white peers are much smaller. To offer a graduation analysis, cohort graduation rates have steadily increased over a 3-year period. Dropout rates have increased at a higher rate among American Indian males, while decreasing for all their peers. As it relates to suspension, rates of suspension have decreased over a 3-year period. Suspension rates remain significantly higher for Black students and disproportionately higher for American Indian students than their white peers. North Carolina was one of 4 states to participate in a pilot program led by the National Comprehensive Center. The pilot launched November 2020. The other three states in pilot were Washington, Oklahoma, and Idaho. The National Center is part of the U.S. Department of Education's Comprehensive Center Network that works with states and regional centers to deliver universal and targeted capacity building services. The goal was to identify key categories of support for American Indian students, resulting in a plan for support. This process included circles of reflection, which included DPI, senior leadership, SACIE members, American Indian educators, and tribal leadership. North Carolina's identified priorities were effective teachers and leaders, Native culture and language, tribal consultation, and sovereignty. With the given data, as it relates to effective teachers and leaders, we see that each of these priorities are high with a long-term goal. With the given data as it relates to Native culture and language, one has been identified as high priority with short-term opportunity, which is the encouraging and supporting of culturally responsive practices to include assessment. As it relates to tribal consultation and sovereignty, identified are 2 items of high priority and short-term opportunity. The items being that the state supports LEAs to achieve significant tribal consultation in school planning and budgeting, and that the state tracks and monitors tribal consultation in LEA and school planning and budgeting. Given the data, the North Carolina State Advisory Council on Indian Education recommends that the North Carolina Department of Instruction work closely with school districts and Title VI Indian education coordinators to implement SACIE recommendations. The first recommendation is aligned with Priority 3 from the pilot, which is that of tribal consultation and sovereignty. This particular recommendation was raised in the circles of reflection. As part of the State Board of Education vision for opportunity, equity, established a department-level position dedicated to consultation with and coordination across all entities whose missions seek to improve educational opportunities for American Indian students. This recommendation is consistent with requirements secured by the Every Student Succeeds Act, which requires collaboration and consultation with districts, state and federal tribes, higher education, critical state organizations, and the Department of Public Instruction. It is also important to note that this recommendation aligns with the State Board Equity Resolution. Recommendation 2 is to ensure senior leadership who participated in the National Center's American Indian and Alaska Native Education Project Circles of Reflection pilot acts on recommendations prioritized in 3 core areas. 1. Native culture and language. 2. Tribal consultation and sovereignty. And 3. Targeted DPI efforts to recruit effective American Indian teachers and leaders. During the Circles of Reflection, SACIE members and American Indian community members learned of DPI efforts to recruit minority teachers, but this effort was not well communicated to American Indian community leaders, nor were specific strategies to target American Indian teachers and leaders noted. Next, SACIE recommends that NCDPI implement formal protocols to ensure DPI collaboration and consultation with SACIE regarding the revision of content standards. Consultation will include the development of 21st century instructional resources that specifically reference American Indian history, the current affairs of culture, and the expansion of innovative programming similar to the Native Voices piloted by NCDPI. This also aligns with DPI's equity resolution. Recommendation 4 centers around the COVID-19 pandemic, which has created new challenges that have revealed deeply rooted barriers to increase student achievement, most noticeably inequitable access to technology. To this end, SACIE recommended the following: increased advocacy, increased digital literacy efforts, and to ensure that COVID relief dollars adequately address gaps resulting from learning loss during the 12-month closure. State and federal dollars should support recovery in reading, mathematics, and comprehensive services in social and emotional learning. The mascot recommendation also aligns with the equity resolution passed by the State Board. SACIE Recommendation 5 was to urge all public school administrators and boards of education to review and implement local policies related to the selection of athletic mascots, and to educate all school personnel on the long-term damaging effects to students when inappropriate images and messages dishonor the American Indian culture. In Appendix A to the report, there is an update on American Indian mascot use in North Carolina public schools. The updated information revealed that 34 schools still have American Indian themed logo mascots. SACIE believes this type of imagery is detrimental to the development of positive self-images among American Indian students and harmful to the ways in which the American Indian community is perceived by non-native students and staff. The final recommendation was to explore new venues for disseminating the self-paced modules titled Culturally Responsive Teaching About American Indians. This resource aligns with North Carolina Teaching Standard 2. The modules will ensure that all educators have access to instructional resources that teach about and celebrate state and federal American Indian tribes, their history, and their achievements. Culturally responsive teachers are the greatest assets in raising the achievement of American Indian students. To follow recommendations, there are those who make a huge difference. Therefore, we acknowledge the North Carolina State Board of Education, the North Carolina Commission of Indian Affairs, DPI staff, the National Comprehensive Center, and SACIE members. These teams are the reason we are able to launch such an explicit report each and every year. Thanks to each division indeed. Warmest thanks to Dr. Susan Silver, who serves as the DPI liaison to SACIE. SACIE truly appreciates the commitment, the energy, and the passion of Dr. Silver to SACIE and this presentation. Her guidance and expertise are invaluable. SACIE encourages you to share the 2021 SACIE report, its findings, and recommendations as you deem appropriate. The report can be located on the NCDPI website or by simply Googling 2021 SACIE report. While 2022 continues to embark on uncharted trajectories, we are faithful to continuing this important work. Again, SACIE thanks you for the opportunity to present. We are committed to continuing our work, fulfilling the mission of this great board, American Indian Resilience.